Hey there folks, welcome back to Chits and Cardboard, and today we are paying homage to a game that just crossed its 20th anniversary, Ticket to Ride. This is an iconic, fantastic game that has operated as a gateway game for children and adults alike and gotten more people than you could probably count into the hobby of board gaming. But it's also 20 years old, and since then a lot of fantastic games have come out. Welcome to Chits and Cardboard. This is 5 games that are better than Ticket to Ride. Our first game that is better than Ticket to Ride is by none other than the great Dr. Reiner Knizia, who in his own right has many games that could have made this list, but our choice was Cascadero. Cascadero shares a lot of commonalities with Ticket to Ride, but most importantly, it is a route building game. You are attempting to connect different colored towns on the board with each other to earn favor with those towns. There are 5 colors of towns total that are very spread apart, and you are creating routes between them. Once you connect to a new town, you earn favor with that town.
Like in most of Dr. Knizia's games, taking a turn in Cascadero is incredibly simple, but has very strategic implications. On your turn, all you're going to be doing is placing a single envoy onto the board, trying to connect towns by different routes. If you're the first person to connect to a town, then you're going to move up the associated color track a single space. However, if you are the second or a future person connecting to that town, you are going to move up 2 spaces. And in addition, if you connect to a town that has a herald, then you're going to move up an additional space as well.
In Cascadero, one way to score points is via first come, first serve objectives. There are 6 of them, and the first person to earn those objectives will earn 3 points. Firstly, you can get 5 of your cubes up to level 1 on all 5 tracks. Secondly, you can get 3 of your cubes up to level 2. And lastly, you can get 1 of your cubes up to level 3. Doing so will also qualify you to win the game, which you need to do no matter how many points you have. Additionally, the first person to gain 3 seals, or the first person to connect all 5 different colored towns with a single route, or the first person to connect 3 of the same colored town with a single route will also earn 3 points.
As you move your cubes up the success track, you're going to trigger different effects when you reach a space next to that effect. You're either going to score points, you're going to gain a seal or move one of your envoys, you're going to move up a faction track of your choice, or you're going to place an additional envoy, effectively taking an additional turn. This can turn into an absolute chain of different combos that you can make, scoring many, many different points and turning that simple act of placing one envoy onto the board into a series of events that can be very, very, very successful and very satisfying.
If you're looking for a board game with just that little more depth over Ticket to Ride, but similar mechanisms that feel familiar and a scoring system that is not based on whether you get blocked off between 2 cities or not, then Cascadero will definitely be for you. It has a very similar price point, it has a very similar learning difficulty, and just a little more strategic depth, comparing to Ticket to Ride very nicely as an alternative and something we strongly suggest.
Our next game that is better than Ticket to Ride is Flamecraft. This is a worker placement and order fulfillment game that is incredibly easy to learn, incredibly easy to teach, very fun to play, and just absolutely adorable.
In Flamecraft, you are dropped into this whimsical world as a flamekeeper who trains dragons to help local shop owners operate their shops more effectively. During the game, you'll be adding dragons to shops and enchanting shops, making them even more powerful for future adventurers.
On your turn, you have 2 different options. You can either place a dragon at a shop and gather resources, or you can make an enchantment. If you decide to gather resources, you place your dragon on the associated shop, gather the resources that are located there at the top of the card, and then, if you have a card that has the same symbol as one of the open locations at that shop, you can place a dragon there. Additionally, you can use the Fire Up ability on one of those dragons and gain whatever the benefit is. If you choose to complete an enchantment, you can spend the resources that you've collected throughout the game to complete one of these orders in the middle of the board in the open market. You will then slip that card underneath that shop, and anyone in the future who visits that shop to gather resources will gain those additional resources. And in addition, those enchantments, when you complete them, give you a ton of points.
When the game is set up, there are 6 locations that are very basic that are placed out on the board. As you interact with those locations and fire up dragons, dragons will fire up based on which resource they belong to of the 6 resources in the game. Each dragon within a resource or suit will activate in the exact same way. For example, a bread dragon will allow you to draw 1 dragon from a face-up display. As you add new locations to the board, these locations tend to be more unique and have interesting abilities you can interact with which come out round over round. Additionally, you'll have the option to gain fancy dragons, which are private objectives that can either be resolved in the sun, aka during your turn at some point, or on the moon at the end of the game. Doing so will raise your reputation across the reputation track, and the most reputable Flamekeeper will be the winner.
Compared to Ticket to Ride, Flamecraft just has so much to offer. It's accessible by such a wide audience, it's whimsical and easy to learn so kids can play it, but there's enough strategy in this game with the worker placement that adults can enjoy it as well. The price point is very, very similar, and this game just looks amazing, and it's just so inviting and so kind of comfy, cozy, and just fun to play. It's a game that can be played very seriously, but it's a game that just invites you to come and have fun. The next game that we recommend over Ticket to Ride is Pan Am. In Pan Am, you and your friends are playing as fledgling airlines that are trying to claim different air routes around the world and establish airports to earn money before you eventually get taken over by Pan American Airlines and you're forced to buy stock into that company to make money because you don't have any routes left. This is a very fun game all about route building just like Ticket to Ride, and we think you should give it a shot.
Every game of Pan Am occurs over 7 rounds, each round consisting of 4 phases. The first phase of each round is very simple. You just flip an event card, resolve the event, and then change the stock price of Pan Am stock to whatever the event says. Our starting event here is 5. After that will be action resolution. First, all players will bid for actions, and then the highest bid on each action will resolve the action. The way this works is, let's say I bid 3 for airports. That means I want to pay 3 to build an airport. Someone else can come and bid 5 and return my 3 bid. I now have the option to bid 7 for an airport or move on to a different action and do something else. After all the bids are locked in and everyone's placed all their workers, we resolve the actions in alphabetical order. First, airports are built. Second, destination cards are drawn. These help you establish routes. Third, planes are built. Fourth, routes are created. And then fifth, directives are drawn.
After everyone has taken all of their actions in the resolution phase, we move on to the Pan Am expansion phase. This is where Pan Am will expand across the globe, taking over different air routes. Depending on the number of die that are listed on the event card, you're going to roll the die. Whatever routes are indicated, Pan Am will expand along. If there's currently nobody in that location, Pan Am just takes it over. But if Pan Am runs into a route that is currently owned by a player, that player will then earn the amount of money that is indicated by the distance of that route. After Pan Am has finished expanding, players earn their income based on the number of airports that they have on the board, added to the sum of the distance traveled by the different planes that they have and the different routes they have on the board. Players can then have the option of buying stock in Pan Am, which earns them endgame victory points, or they can save their money to spend on bidding in the future turns.
Compared to Ticket to Ride, Pan Am puts so much more on the table and has so much more to offer. It's also highly interactive because you're bidding very directly against other people for all of the actions on the board. But otherwise, it's very Ticket to Ride adjacent. You're just completing routes and getting payout, whether it be points or money for those routes. So if you're into Ticket to Ride, this will feel very familiar. And if you haven't played Ticket to Ride and want something a little more complicated, but with the same kind of feeling, this is definitely your game. I think Pan Am kind of snuck under the radar for most people. It was really hard to get there for a while. It's out of print now, but you can still find it pretty cheap. And it's just such an amazing, amazing game to get to the table. It always hits every single time.
If you want another game better than Ticket to Ride and absolutely hate waiting for your friends to take their turns, look no further than Fromage. Fromage is a beautiful worker placement game where you and your friends are going to be competing to make cheese and place them in different locations on the board to score points and get added benefits. You have to be careful and very strategic in how you place your workers though, because depending on the locations you put them, you're going to be either getting those workers back next turn, 2 turns from now, or in 3 turns.
So as Jeff alluded to, you are interacting with a mini game on each of your turns on the Fromage board of the 4 available to you. At the end of your turn, you're going to rotate the board, changing the minigame in front of you and changing what you're interacting with. In each minigame, you're basically dealing with the same constraints. There are 3 worker colors, white, blue, or yellow, that you can interact with based on your workers, white, blue, or yellow. There are also 3 location colors you can place workers on, bronze, silver, or gold, and when you do, those take longer to come back depending which one they are. Bronze will come back next turn, silver will come back in 2 turns, gold will come back in 3 turns. You are trying to optimize the combination of what you're putting out in such a way that you have the correct colored worker at the correct time to place it in the right minigame when it's in front of you. As an example, let's take this blue worker and place it on this area control minigame. we're going to place it on a location that takes 3 turns to come back. We're then going to gain 1 card with this yellow worker, take our card, our turn's done, we're going to spin the board. Now we get the yellow worker back because we only took 1 card, and we interact with this new mini game in front of us. We might take this white worker and this piece of cheese and put it into a white location on the board that is a silver plate. Now, when the board rotates, we don't get either of those workers back because there's still 1 more turn to wait for them to rotate enough to be facing us so we can take them back off the board. And therein lies the puzzle of Fromage.
Okay, so what are the different mini games in Fromage? First, we're going to talk about the towns or the V. So this is just straight up area majority. Whoever has the most workers in each of the different provinces or bordering on the provinces is going to score that province, which is a different scoring depending on setup. The second mini game in Fromage is the Bistro. In the Bistro, you're trying to place your cheese on as many tables as possible, and if you're able to place your cheese on both the left and the right side of the same table, you'll score more points at the end of the game. The third game is the Festival. In the Festival, you're essentially just trying to make adjacency. The more cheese you have in the different locations that are all adjacent to each other, the more points you will score. And finally, we have the Fromagerie. In the Fromagerie, you're trying to get your cheese on each of the different shelves in the Fromagerie, and depending on which shelves you have your cheese placed on, you will get different benefits.
Fromage has a lot to offer relative to Ticket to Ride. First off, it's a really consumable package. It's very beautiful. It's easy to learn. Everything we've taught you here could be taught in like 5-10 minutes and get people up and running. And there's a little bit more to the game you could teach as you go, such as building different barns or consuming cows to do various bonuses or using berries to get a multiplier bonus, as well as these cards you're going to get. But relative to Ticket to Ride, there's so much less downtime. Everyone's playing at the same time, and it still has that interactiveness that makes Ticket to Ride super special. You can watch what someone else is doing, similar to watching what they're doing on a route, and kind of block them off or play in a way that plays around them and inconveniences them slightly. I really love that about this game, and I think it makes it a bit of a standout and certainly a much more modern and fresh take on something that gives that same kind of feeling. Our final game that is better than Ticket to Ride is Foundations of Rome, or Foundations of Metropolis if you don't have a small shipping container to store this huge box in. In Foundations of Rome, you are acting as an architect during the Roman Empire, helping raise Rome from the ground. You're doing so by earning deeds to various lots in Rome and building buildings into Rome that give you various bonuses, whether it be currency, population, or city buildings that give you scoring for adjacency.
In Foundations of Rome, you and your friends have 3 different options to take on your turn. The first is to purchase deeds. You'll go to the open market right up here and pay the indicated cost above the card that you want. Second is to build buildings. You'll turn in the cards that you already have purchased, the individual deeds, and place a building on the board of your choice from your individual player board. Third, and finally, you can take income, which is a base amount plus the amount of money that is provided by the buildings that you've already purchased.
Whenever you purchase a deed from the market is slid over to the right and a new deed takes its place from the active era deck. These deeds represent unique locations on the board, example D3. Whenever the era deck is empty for that era scoring occurs, which is just a basic calculation based on how much population you have as well as the buildings you've built. Once the third era is complete, the game ends and the player with the most victory points wins the game. I know it's hard to believe given the size of this game, but that really is all there is to say about Foundations of Rome. It really is that light and breezy, and as compared to Ticket to Ride, it's such a refreshing experience, even though you still have that head-to-head decision-making happening on a central board. You and your opponents might see a deed you really want, or you see a deed that helps an opponent and you decide to buy it just to stifle their plans. It's so thinky, so crunchy, but ultimately so simple and sure not to cause analysis paralysis in your friends. Now, if you want to be budget conscious and not be ridiculous like us, you can purchase the cheaper version, Foundations of Metropolis, and have a virtually identical experience. I'll be honest. Just get Foundations of Metropolis. It's better. But with that, that's 5 games that are better than Ticket to Ride. I really hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to see more of this content, and we'll catch you next time. See ya.